Alrighty, welcome to episode 73 of Before the Battle. My name is Nick Baldwin of BloodyEbel.com, and I'm joined as always by Wes Riddle of MMAsucker.com and Jed Meshew of the award-winning MMAfighting.com. I've dropped that the past few weeks, so got to bring that back. The award-winning MMAfighting.com's Jed Meshew. Jed, how's it going? Wes, how's it going?
Good. This week, if you had decided to drop it, I would have let it slide because it is my fault. We are so late in our start time. I fell asleep, legitimately just fell asleep. So it would be okay for us to not be award winning. But thanks, I appreciate you doing it anyway. And I'm excited to be back, man. I'm really looking forward to this week. So I'm pretty pumped about this.
Yes, sir. And Wes, I would imagine you're doing just as well.
I'm doing good. I actually got the day off for Friday, not on Saturday, so I'm going to have to miss a lot of the earlier fights. But I will be very satisfied in watching the Ultimate Fighter 25 finale, which is what we're going to be talking about first.
Yeah, so this is Before the Battle history. We've done one show, two cards, and really this isn't anything different, but just because I can say we're making history, we're making history. We're doing two shows back-to-back. We want a bathroom break in between both cards this weekend, so we're saying episode 73 is for the TUF 25 finale, which takes place on Friday. Justin Gaethje in the main event. And then episode 74, which starts 10 minutes after the end of this episode. Tonight, believe it or not, you have two shows, one night. It's crazy. And that is, of course, UFC 213. Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko in the main event for the women's bantamweight title. But let's go to our result from UFC Fight Night 112. Remembering it fairly often now. Michael Chiesa, Kevin Lee. Lee, of course, getting the first round submission was controversial. I think as time has gone on, it's gotten less and less. It's more and more a better stoppage by Mr. Yamasaki. But nonetheless, let's dive into the results. DraftKings, our picks and performance picks. What do you got for us, Jed?
Well, our performances, if you'll remember when we did this little card, there was a lot of agreement all up and down the line. I think Wes and I actually had the exact same picks for the show. And we ended up losing to you with those picks. Wes and I missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wes and I missed 6. And you, Nicholas, you only missed 5. I will say one slight caveat I wanted to point out there. I tried to change my pick from Johnny Hendricks to our boy Tim Boach after Johnny Hendricks missed weight, but as a man of my word and honor, I did not. So, Nicholas, 5 losses. How many wins does that make? 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 and 5. Nick, you are the picks winner. So congratulations there. And you are a double champion again, sir. You have been on fire lately in these little contests here. I don't even know how many weeks in a row this is at this point. You are once again our DraftKings champion with a score of 327 points. Wes Riddle, again, Wes and I had extremely similar DraftKings teams. I think we only had one pick difference, and I don't even recall who that pick difference was at this time. But Wes finished with 252.5 points. I finished with 238 points. We both had Tim Means, BJ Penn. Wes had Josh Stansberry, which was a rough endpoint, but I had Michael Chiesa. So, Wes did too. I don't really recall. It was just an all around bad team, bad day for me and Wes. I guess you were just the champion of everything. Yeah, that's it. Oh, and performance bonuses. Sorry. Congratulations, fellas. You both picked Marco Polo Reyes to get a performance of the night bonus. He ended
Close. He didn't fight this past weekend, but try again.
Oh, wait. Who was it?
Dominic Reyes.
Oh, God. Yeah. Jesus, man.
Yeah, I hope Polo Reyes doesn't get a performance with his knockout loss to James Vick.
No. Yeah. No, you got and then this was the card where we had 4 performance bonuses. There was no fight of the night.
No.
It was Reyes, Kimball, Lee, and Boach all got performance bonuses. And then also, we also have Bellator results.
Oh, right.
Because can't forget that. I went 2 and 5. Wes, winner of Bellator, going 3-4, and Nick, you also went 2-5. Bellator was really bad for all of us, apparently. So, Nick, you're basically the big winner here. Congratulations, sir, but don't celebrate too much. I'm coming this week. I did research. I'm ready to go. You're fucked.
Very debatable, but we can decide that. We can come to that conclusion next week when we talk about this week's results for both cards. With that, episode 73, as I said off the top, we will be talking about the Ultimate Fighter 25 finale, headlined by a lightweight bout between Michael Johnson and Justin the Highlight Reel Gaethje. I believe that's the nickname. Anyways, we just had the last season of TUF air. A whole 50 people watched it, one of them not being me. James Krause is not in the finals. It is, in fact, Jesse Taylor who defeated Krause by third-round submission against Diego Lima. And then also added to the card was runner-up, or I guess semi-finalist, quarterfinalist James Krause versus fellow quarterfinalist Tom Galaccio. So we'll talk about those fights and everything else on tap for Friday night from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. We'll kick things off with the first fight of the night on Fight Pass. Tecia Torres, Juliana Lima in a somewhat important throwaway bout. Torres coming off a win over Beck Rawlings this past February. She's number 5 in the division. Lima unranked from Brazil. We'll start with Jed. Are you going to go with the Tiny Tornado or Jutai?
I'm gonna go with Tecia Torres here, but this is a hell of a fight. Like, this is why I'm excited. Excited for this weekend in general. Even like the very low beginning early fights, most of them are pretty well made or interesting scraps in one way or the other. And I'm always here to watch Tecia Torres fight, man. She's really exciting. And I know Juliana Lima isn't, ranked, or maybe she's got a low ranking. I'm not actually sure on that. But she's been getting better. She's got win over Nina Ansaroff, who I've come to respect. Certainly, this is a woman who's competing against top quality opposition time in and time out. So I'm here for it. Like, she fought Joanna Jacek. Like, that's what's up. As far as how this fight goes, I just sort of like Torres to overwhelm her with volume here. She's just so much more offensively potent. She's bringing so much more to the table. And Juliana Lima, really, for her to succeed, really needs to work a takedown game, and I don't think that she can effectively get Tecia Torres down. Tecia Torres' only official loss is to Rose Namajunas, who is, one of the best 3 or 4 female fighters. One of the 3 or 4 best in the division, arguably, one of the best female fighters on the planet. I just like Tecia Torres' volume, pile up points on the feet. I think if she wants to work takedown, she can. I don't think she probably will do that all that often, but maybe change the pace, mix it up some. But just take all 3 rounds by clearly landing more efficacious shots.
And Wes, Tecia Torres a big favorite, about 3.5 to 1 here, probably for a good reason. Do you see her getting past Juliana Lima, or are you going to go the Brazilian by big upset?
I think her being the favorite is probably the right call on this one. Lima, she's fought and lost to some of the best in the division. Torres has been able to defeat some kind of in the middle of the division. So it could be a pretty close matchup, but I think Torres is a little bit better, especially in the striking department, and maybe even an advantage in the grappling department, even though she doesn't really look for takedowns that much, but she's pretty crafty, especially when she's able to get into clinch positions. So I like Torres in this one. I think she'll be able to take it pretty decisively, but definitely by decision. Neither are really kind of a finisher. I don't think either has ever been finished in either amateur or professional their careers. So I think this one will go to a decision, but in favor of Tecia.
Yeah, I'm going to complete the hat trick. I think this is a fairly simple bout to call. Tecia Torres is number 5 in the division for a good reason. She's certainly one step behind 5 to 6 fighters in the division. Joanna Jacek, of course, Claudia Gadelha, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade, maybe even Michelle Watterson. But after that, then you start thinking Torres is one of the better. She still is one of the better strawweights in the division. Juliana Lima is a good fighter. she'll beat a lot of the non-ranked opponents put in front of her, but this is a big step up and one she's not going to pass. She needs takedowns if she wants to beat Torres. Torres is a pretty good wrestler herself. I suspect this will play out on the feet because that's where Torres has the biggest advantage and has the least chance or the smallest chance of getting caught in some sort of sub from Lima. So I think this is going to be Torres by volume. It's not going to be the most fun fight, but I think it's going to be a fairly decisive victory for Tecia Torres. Next up, headlining the feature Fight Pass early prelims, we got Gray Maynard taking on Teruto Ishihara in a fairly interesting featherweight matchup. Jed, do you like the vetier Maynard, or do you think Ishihara picked up the biggest win of his career?
Man, this is a really interesting fight to me. This is a really tough fight to call, and I think this fight is way closer than the odds suggest. You got out there, Gray Maynard is like plus 250 underdog in some places, and I get why. I don't want to pretend like, oh, that's unreasonable, but at the same time, Teruto Ishihara is, look, we all like him. He's a fun dude. He has that whole I love my bitches thing. He's very on brand, and his brand is kind of quirky and interesting. But this dude is not a guy who should really be that big a favorite over most people at this point. I think he's a decent fighter. And I think he's getting better, and I think going forward he will continue to improve. But he also just fought Artem Lobov last year and lost pretty decisively. And I think Artem Lobov is better than a lot of people give him credit for, but dude, he's still fucking Artem Lobov. Come on, man. For you to have this hype around you, you would think that that's the type of a win you could get. But at the same time, Gray Maynard, his last fight was awful. The Ryan Hall fight, I know he was very frustrated by the whole encounter and bitched about Ryan Hall, but he didn't do anything. He was so terrified of engaging with Ryan Hall on the ground for any amount of time, and then on the feet he couldn't do anything other than get kicked and not. He didn't have a plan afterwards. And you factor that in with you couple that with the fact that his chin seems to be really gone at this point. It's not, I don't know how well that's, it doesn't seem like that's a thing that's going to ever get better. And then now he's just kind of over the hill in that regard. I don't love his move to featherweight. He was always a big lightweight in general. So all of this together makes me think that Ishihara has a lot of power, a pretty accurate striker, and so I feel like eventually he's just going to clip Gray Maynard, but he also can't, he's not a good defensive wrestler, and it's totally possible Gray comes in and just takes him down 3 times and sits on him. I'm banking on the fact that Ishihara works with the Team Alpha Male guys, and that should, he'll be prepared for that very obvious game plan and can land something fierce, but I won't be surprised at all if Gray Maynard just wrestles him to a decision.
Wes, do you like the big underdog here in Gray Maynard, the vet, or do you think the up-and-comer, Teruto Ishihara, as I said, pulls off the biggest win of his fairly young career?
The only thing before Gray Maynard's last fight with Ryan Hall that I thought was falling of his game was his chin. But when he fought Ryan Hall, as Jed mentioned, he did nothing. And he was very terrified to go to the ground, which is where he excels, and grapple with this guy, yet a lot of the victories that he had are over people who are predominant and better at submissions. And pretty much all the losses he's had recently are by knockouts, and Ryan Hall wasn't a knockout guy. So that kind of questions and concerns me in picking Gray Maynard in any fights. But then again, it kind of goes the same with Teruto, just because sometimes when he punches, he only punches kind of one and done and looks for power shots. He doesn't put together great combinations. He's just kind of looking for the heavy shot, and I think that's what got him his last 2 victories in the UFC before the Artem Lobov fight. The Lobov fight, I thought he was going to be able to come out there and be able to put a beating on him, and he surely didn't. He just didn't have the combinations. Maybe that's one thing he worked on in this camp, but knowing that Teruto doesn't really have that many combinations, and a lot of the times I've seen Gray, or that we have seen Gray get hurt, are by people using combinations. If Gray can avoid that power shot, I think he's going to be able to wrestle his way to a decision. For that reason, I'm picking Maynard, but it's really risky because he doesn't have that chin, and Teruto could definitely land that one-and-done punch.
Yeah, this is a tough one to call, and I'm surprised to see Drew as high as a 2-1, and even higher than that. I think last time I checked, he was minus 220, right around there. So, I thought,
He's
this
up to
should be
minus
close.
300 in places.
Wow. Yeah, that's way too high. This should be closer to pick him. I favorite Taruto a little bit, but not by a lot, because Gray Maynard is a crafty vet. He's mostly a shot fighter, but he still has just enough in the tank to pull off some wins and just not get smoked out of the water like he did against Ross Pearson a couple years back and fights like that. I don't see him beating True to Ishihara. Ishihara is the more active guy on the feet. He, at this point, as I said, more volume, and that's really key here, because Gray Maynard, if he isn't able to take down True to Ishihara at will, which, he's probably going to get Trudeau down at, this is where I struggle to be confident Trudeau. He's kind of an automatic pick just because of how done Gray Maynard is, but I'm not that confident in Ishihara in general after the Artem Lobov fight. I mean, he looked like a guy who just didn't care. He looked like a guy who, he's not a guy to follow his corner instruction that well, I don't think. He's, as far as picking him and betting money on him, he's not too trustworthy of a fighter, I feel. But that said, he still has he's athletic, he has the power, he's getting better, he's with a great camp, and Gray Maynard is ultimately done. I can see Maynard taking him down at will, because I don't think Ishihara has very good wrestling defense at all. So that's a very good option that I think that could happen. But his chin is just so shot where over the course of 15 minutes, I think Taruto Ishihara can land. He does find an opening, does find something, and knocks Gray Maynard out. But again, this should be a lot closer to a pick'em, and Taruto Ishihara against anybody should not be a 3-1 favorite, unless you're fighting me. That's a different story. But so yeah, True by knockout's the pick, but not confident at all. If Maynard grinds this one out, I will not be surprised whatsoever. Moving on, first fight on the televised prelims. I don't know if it's FS1 or FS2. We got Jessica I taking on newcomer Aspen Ladd. I believe she was on The Ultimate Fighter. Jed, you like the slight favorite here, Aspen Ladd, or does Evil Eye get back into the winning column after 4 straight losses?
Man, I don't know. This one's really, really tough fight. It's one of the tougher ones of the weekend for me to call, just because, and I don't know why, but I think Jessica I is such a strange fighter in that she should, her record in the UFC is 1-5-1, I think. And that could arguably be 1-6, with her only win being over a TKO over Leslie Smith. But at the same time, I thought she beat Betchkahea. Thought, it was a close fight, but I think she should have deserved the nod in her last fight over Betchkahea. And her losses have been to Miesha Tate, Juliana Pena, Sarah McMahon, Betchkahea, Alexis Davis. She won a decision over Sarah Kaufman, which was then overturned to a no contest. That's the division right there. That's the very top of the division. She's been competing against the best bantamweights in the world for the last 3 years, and she's been coming up short, but there's really not any shame to getting decision by Miesha Tate and Juliana Pena and Sarah McMahon. A lot of women can't even get it to decisions there. A lot of them just get stopped by that murderer's row. Like I said, I thought she beat Betchkahea. Granted, the fight was very close, but that fight's a little bit instructive of how this goes here. Aspen Ladd is very young. She is 5-0, very young in her mixed martial arts career, and I don't know how that. It's hard for me to kind of envision how this is going to play out. Aspen Ladd wants to be able to get on top, work a very good top position sub pass control game, but I don't know that she can do that. Jessica I is a pretty good defensive wrestler, all things considered. And I mean, like I said, yeah, okay, she gave up takedowns to Miesha Tate and Sarah McMahon. The quality of wrestling difference between those women and the very young developing Aspen Ladd is quite stark. But on the feet, Aspen Ladd puts a high volume pressure game together where it's not the most complex striking attack, but that's basically how Bethe Correia won the third round and ended up taking the fight from her just by putting more volume than Jessica Eye was willing to return fire with. So I could totally see Jessica Eye having the more potent offense on the feet, but Aspen Ladd just kind of consistent pressure, scoring more points to win here. I'm gonna pick Jessica Eye just because the skill, like the gap in experience is so stark here, and because she's all been coming up short against the best in the division. I don't think Aspen Ladd's there yet. She's making her UFC debut, so just all those factors are going to make me pick Jessica Eye, and she's going to get a win and keep herself in the UFC.
Wes, do you agree? Are you going with the slight underdog here in the more vet, the vet of the two fighters, Jessica Eye, or does Aspen Ladd find success in her debut?
I want to pick Aspen Ladd in this one. I really enjoy her. She's a great person. But I think that her youth is in competing in mixed martial arts. She hasn't really had a chance to compete against the very top crops of some of the fighters in her weight class. She has a win over Amanda Cooper, who's not that good at submission defense whatsoever. So, I mean, that's one win on her record that she has over somebody notable. But one of her amateur losses was back to Cynthia Calvillo in a fight that she was able to put some combinations together here and there. As Jed mentioned, pretty offensive with her output and loves to clinch and try to get on top in certain positions. But Calvillo was able to win a lot of the exchanges and most of the exchanges on the feet, along with having some forward pressure as well in there too, even though Ladd in some of her more recent fights has been the one being aggressive. But then again, it's that competition difference. Aspen hasn't had a chance to fight some of the top of the division yet. This is going to be a good chance against Eye, who has fought the best of the division, just has not been able to defeat any of the best. But I do think Jessica Eye is going to be able to get probably a decision nod in this one. I'm a little bit more confident in her striking abilities, and I think that she's going to be able to maybe squeeze out a decision, but I think it's going to be one that's probably going to go a split. And I think that there's a good chance we could see Aspen get the victory in this one for the reasons Jed mentioned, but I'm going to go, like I said, just based off Eye because of that experience and Ladd coming in having not fought the best. It's just a little bit concerning for me to pick her.
Yeah, I've been high on Jessica Eye for the most part. I've picked her in a lot of spots and where she's disappointed. I don't know much about Aspen Ladd. I've heard decent things about her. She's undefeated. Her fights have been in Invicta, decent competition. Simply as a fade on Jessica Eye, the pick here is Aspen Ladd. Again, Eye, real good at losing fights, and she just does things where it's like she's the better fighter, but she still seems to not come out on top. So I'm done with picking Evil Eye. It's kind of surprising she's still in the UFC. The pick is Aspen Ladd by decision. Next up, we got Ed Herman, short fuse himself, taking on CB, the Doberman Holloway, in a battle of middleweights turned light heavyweights. Jed, Herman, or Holloway?
I can't believe this fight hasn't happened before. Like, this is, which is sort of indicative of the entire middleweight division. I know this is a light heavyweight bout, but these two guys are middleweights who are just fighting a light heavyweight because why not? Like, this fight is just, it feels like this is a thing that's totally happened before. And honestly, I don't know who the hell to pick here. Like, I'm picking CB Holloway because I think he's just a better all-around fighter than Ed Herman at this point. But, like, I don't know. Ed Herman is one of those guys who's like sneaky crafty, who's been around the block long enough that he has developed some, like, a little bit of a sneaky game into him. Like, he was, like, I'm pretty high on Nikita Krylov as a light heavyweight, and he was hanging with Krylov in that first round until he got bolted in the second. And on the other end of that, I mean, Nate Marquardt knocked out CB Holloway, which is just, that's not a thing that should really happen to any, like, this for where Nate Marquardt is in his career. The other kind of one of the other factors here, both these guys have been off for a long time. Holloway hasn't fought since 2015. Herman be almost a year. He fought at 201, so that's at the end of this month, right? This time last year. So both of them coming off pretty big layoffs. If you'll remember, Dalloway was supposed to fight at 203, and then an elevator broke him. And like, I don't know, he had like sustained like a back injury. So I don't know, man. It's weird. I think Dalloway's a better fighter in general, though. I think he can control the wrestling here. Like, he can control the grappling, and that should be sort of the case here. If Ed Herman's on his back, he's not tapping CB Dalloway off his back. I think Dalloway can out wrestle him on the feet. I think Ed Herman might be a little bit better than CB Dalloway, but I don't think it's by that much. But at the same time, Dalloway got knocked out by Nate Marquardt. So maybe you can catch him. I'm picking CB Dalloway just by virtue of being more skills all around, but I could totally see it going the other way.
Wes, CB Dalloway, or Ed Short Fuse Herman?
I remember watching CB Dalloway fight Michael Bisping, and I think there was one moment in the first round Dalloway actually dropped him and pretty much won the first round, and Bisping was in trouble, but luckily Dalloway kind of gassed himself out and just slowed down, had no output the remaining of the fight, and Bisping was able to get the decision. But just that kind of right there alone makes me think, I mean, that was Dalloway's fight before Nate Marquardt. I mean, that's still, even though that's a loss to Bisping, he still had a moment in that fight, and it's important to remember moments like that. He did, though, lose the last fight to Marquardt, and that kind of came in because I think he was rushing in the second round kind of early, and Marquardt was able to clip him, if I remember right. I actually missed that fight when it happened live, but Ed Herman, on the other hand, he's had some moments in fights too. Jed, you mentioned it too with the Krylov fight. He was pretty much hanging tough until that, I guess, knee landed in the second round. But before that, I think Herman was able to put together a good combination on Krylov. Before that, Herman's last loss, I see, was to Derek Brunson, who's always been a blitzer and gets quick knockouts if he can. Herman, he hasn't been too active, but this is just going to be a tough one to call. I guess, Jed, you picked Dalloway.
I did.
Since just to change it up so we don't stay similar anymore ever.
Well, you picked Maynard and I picked Ishihara, so we're not lockstep this time, at least.
We'll go even further away, and I'm going to side with Ed Herman in this one. I think just judging off their last performances, both have the ability to get knocked out by each other, and both of these two have abilities to score knockout victories. So it's going to come down to whoever I think has a power advantage maybe on the feet. And I think Herman edges that out slightly, but Dalloway could be able to grapple his way to some kind of victory.
This is a mess of a fight. This is just so weird, and something bad's probably going to happen. I don't want to get too deep into it, so I'm just going to flip a coin, and that coin landed on CB Dalloway. So CB Dalloway's the pick. Both haven't done much at all lately. As Jed pointed out, Dalloway hasn't fought since getting knocked out by Marquardt end of 2015. Herman just got KO'd by Krylov in July of last year. So it's been a little while. I don't really think either have gotten any better. We're not going to see anything new, I don't think. It's weird. Herman can look good, and then he can look terrible. Same with Dalloway. So it's going to be a weird fight. I'll say Dalloway takes it by a close decision, but again, really anything can happen. We'll talk about James Krause and Tom Gaethje. That fight was just announced. They're, of course, the two quarterfinalists, I guess. No, semifinalists on The Ultimate Fighter. That did not make it to the finals, which will be the co-main event of this card. So James Krause and Tom Gaethje. I know it was literally announced half an hour ago, but Jed, you got a pick for us.
Well, I'll say I'm pretty surprised. As we've established, I was asleep. I did not watch this most recent episode of TUF, so I did not get to see James Krause. Apparently, he was submitted by by Jesse Taylor. Yeah, he was apparently submitted by Jesse Taylor, but I couldn't see what happened there. I will say Gaethje kind of impressed. Gaethje is not a guy I saw doing very well at all. I thought Eddie Gordon was going to bust him up, and for a minute Eddie Gordon was, and then Eddie Gordon was tapping out to him, and then Justin Edwards was tapping out to him, and suddenly Gaethje seems like a good guy too, so he's just kind of nice Cinderella story to put together a run through the TUF house. And Jesse or James Krause was honestly, he was my pre thing, like looking at the lineups, is like, okay, James Krause is probably going to win this thing. I thought like there were a few guys that really stood out to me as obvious front runners in the show. Krause was one of them. I always did have a personal respect for Jesse Taylor in general, but I thought he wasn't, I didn't think he would make it to the finals. And Diego Lima, who I've who I sort of know a little bit, I thought maybe could do something, and turns out Diego Lima and Jesse Taylor did, and I thought James Krause was going to be that guy who's going to take the whole thing down. Remember, this is a guy who didn't need to go on the show. Like, he was on like a win streak in the UFC and just opted to do it because reasons. So with all that being said, I think he's a better fighter than Tom Glicchio, but maybe, Tom Glicchio has been making his money by upsetting people and getting submissions. So, and James Krause just got submitted apparently. So I suspect that won't be a thing that happens. And Krause will be able to, he can honestly probably grapple with Glicchio if he really felt the need, but he can just keep it on the feet and bust him up standing. So I'm going to take Krause with maybe a 3rd round TKO.
Wes, Tom Glicchio or James Krause?
Yeah, I haven't even had a chance to make a pick for this one, just because it was announced so soon. But I do favor, in this matchup, I'm going to be favoring James Krause. I think that his skill set is just a little bit more well-rounded, and I feel like he has the abilities as lasting through a 3-round fight to get the job done, especially as the rounds progress. It's hard to trust Galecchio's cardio, which has always been a factor, even not even accounting the Ultimate Fighter this season. If you look back at his past fights, that's kind of where he loses to in those later rounds, just runs out of gas. I think James Krause has the ability, if he can stuff those takedowns, he'll just be the better and more superior striker. And I think Krause will be able to get the job done. So I'm going to take James Krause. I'll go just a decision victory. But he definitely, I think, could get a finish in this one. But if you were to favor Galecchio, I'd favor maybe early on by some kind of submission.
Yeah, I'm going James Krause here as well. I haven't had any time to think about it, of course, as nor has anybody. But knowing very little about Galecchio, it seems like he's a good submission guy, and that's kind of it. Maybe he's a bit well-rounded. Krause is, he's a decent fighter, and I think the Jesse Taylor fight could go a different way. Had it not been, say, Krause's 3rd or 4th fight in the TUF house, and same with Taylor. And TUF is always a bit weird, and those fights are a bit weird and don't always go the same way it would, say, with 2 months of prep or whatever. So
TUF disproportionately benefits wrestlers, like by a wide margin,
because of the wrestling mindset, the fight so often, or the matches so often.
I mean, that in general, like without having really time to do specific game plans, like offensive potency is a much more viable factor, because it's just like you're not having time to prepare. So it's just, okay, I need to be imposing my will and an active participant in what's going on. And wrestlers have the ability to just do that. They have the ability to consistently just like do the same thing over and over and be prepared. Plus it's only 2 rounds. Like, I know that's not, and Krause ended up getting tapped in the 3rd, but like, yeah, it's a 2-round fight essentially. So it widely favors wrestlers, in my opinion.
No, I mean, I think that makes sense. I think, just with the wrestling mindset, the having matches so often, the back-to-back weight cuts, I think you're bang on with that. The pick is James Krause again. I'll say decision, but we got to move on because we have so much more to talk about. Headlining the televised prelims, we got Angela Hill, Overkill Hill herself, taking on Ashley Yoder, the Spider Monkey. I like her nickname, Ashley Yoder, but does she get the job done? Wes, we'll go to you. Overkill or the Spider Monkey?
I'm not really too sure on this one. That's mainly me saying that because I don't know that much about Ashley Yoder, and I know a little bit more about Angela Hill. And Angela Hill is a very, very impressive striker who loves to have a lot of output. Her biggest hole, though, in her pretty much throughout her entire career has been her takedown defense. She gets taken down quite a bit, and if she does get taken down, she doesn't really have the ability to stand up and fight her way back up to get back on the feet. Ashley Yoder, I see though with her, her last fight, which was her UFC debut, she was only able to land one takedown and tried twice. I'm not really sure if she has the same capabilities of grappling in comparison to Tisha Torres and Rose Namajunas. Plus, Angela Hill in her last fight, she fought Jessica Andrade, who just fought for the title, and gave probably Jessica one of the tougher tests in her career that counted as a win for Andrade. And Hill was able to land quite a bit of shots. So I think Angela Hill's going to get the job done. Could it be a finish? Maybe. I did pick him a second round knockout, but I think maybe a decision is more likely since Yoder has never been finished before.
And Jed, what do you think? Angela Hill and Ashley Yoder.
Yeah, I'm picking Angela Hill. I think Angela Hill has improved so like a dramatic and stark amount since her first little baby run in the UFC, coming off the TUF house, where she had like one fight before doing TUF or something like that. It was something extremely small, and then fights in the UFC, lost to really high people, lost to Tisha Torres and Rose Namajunas. But then I thought moving to Invicta was a great choice for her. I think that a lot of women fighters should be doing that a little more often. A lot of the early developed. It's why I don't love Aspen Ladd coming over for this very reason. I think developing is a good thing to do. Take your time, develop. I think Invicta offers an excellent avenue to do that, and I thought Angela Hill made the most of it. She looked progressively better every time out at Invicta, and then made the jump over. And yeah, she made the jump over and lost, but she lost to, by my estimation, the third best strawweight in the world. I think Jessica Andrade probably beats every strawweight that's not Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Claudia Gadelha. Like the Rose Namajunas fight would be interesting, but I think I'd probably pick Andrade in that fight. And Hill lost. Hill lost very, like, no mistake, lost conclusively, but she is there in it. Like, she took a onslaught of offense from one of the more potent offensive fighters in the division, and she was there. She showed massive gains in her ability. And it's sort of like how Wes outlined. Like, Ashley Yoder is not a brilliant wrestler. Ashley Yoder is not a great kickboxer. She really wants to make her money on the ground. She has some amateur BJJ accomplishments, which I couldn't verify, but she says that she won the Mundials in like the white belt division. So, I mean, take that for whatever it's worth. But yeah, she wants to get on the ground. I think maybe she could, but I think Angela Hill her footwork has improved so much, her distance management, her defensive wrestling, that it's going to be much more difficult for Yoder to get her there. The one thing I will say is Yoder is a big strawweight, 5'7", 69 inches of reach, going to have a huge reach advantage here over Hill. But Hill is just a much more potent offensive force, particularly on the feet. I think she's going to fill her up with volume, box her ears up, kick her at distance. Yoder is not. Angela Hill is also pretty decent in the clinch, and Yoder was getting manhandled by Justine Kish in the clinch. So I just like Angela Hill's offense here to be much more effective than Ashley Yoder's. Give me Angela Hill by decision.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the more confident picks on the card. A card full of fairly close fights for the most part. Angela Hill, she's just a better fighter. She's gotten a lot better, as Jed pointed out. Her footwork is really good. Her striking just in general is really good. Her how she controls distance and keeps her distance because she has a fairly long reach for the division is really good. And ultimately, she looked decent against Andrade. Obviously, still a decisive win for Andrade, but Andrade is one of the best in the division, and it's not like she, Hill hung in there. Obviously, one thing going for Hill is her chin. Probably won't really play a big part in this fight just because Yoder is not much of a puncher. Yoder needs to get this to the mat if she wants to win, and I just don't really see that happening. And if Yoder can land some sort of takedown, just because Hill's takedown defense and wrestling defense is still a bit questionable, although getting better, I don't see her advancing position to the point where Hill isn't able to get back up and, Yoder has a chance of tapping her out. I don't think it gets that far. I think Hill can make her way back to her feet if she does end up on the mat, on the bottom, of course. I like Angela Hill quite a bit here. I like her in a striking battle. in which she should prevail quite dominant and obviously victorious. So Angela Hill by decision is the pick. Moving on, kicking off the sixth fight, Fox Sports 1 and TSN 5 main card TUF 25 finale. We got a light heavyweight matchup between American Jordan Johnson and Brazilian Marcel Fortuna. Johnson is 7-0. He made his debut against Frankenstein Da Silva, Henrique Da Silva, a little while back. Fortuna knocked out Anthony Hamilton in his debut. He's moving down back to his natural weight class of 205 from his heavyweight debut this past February. Jed, interesting light heavyweight battle here. Jordan Johnson, Marcel Fortuna. Who do you got?
This was one of the fights I didn't really care too much about, and so I won't pretend like I spent a lot of time doing research on it. I watched their UFC fights and I didn't deign to go any further into their careers than that. Marcel Fortuna he's a BJJ guy who he knocked out Anthony Hamilton. It was nice the way he did it. Accurate punching. He was a much smaller man, making I believe short notice debut against Anthony Hamilton. Could be wrong on that. But he's fighting a heavyweight. He is not a natural heavyweight. He is very clearly a light heavyweight, and frankly, he is a pretty small light heavyweight in general. He is going to be dwarfed here by Jordan Johnson. Jordan Johnson's a much bigger, thicker guy with way longer arms. And he has pretty decent pop in his hands. He's fairly accurate. But where he gets his bread buttered is on the ground. He is I think he won Mundials in the brown belt category. Like a Pan Am champion as well. Like he's a jiu-jitsu guy. And I don't think that's going to work out too well for him. Jordan Johnson is a two-time All-American wrestler. He also claims to be an IBJJF Nogi world champion. I don't know at what belt level or whether that's true or not. I would assume that he's not lying about that, but I mean, I didn't look into it any further. I'm just going to throw that out there. He claims to be a Nogi world champ. But he's just going to wrestle him. Like, that's just he's a much bigger man, a thicker man, a stronger man. He's going to wrestle him down. Fortuna is not really going to have anything off his back. I don't think he's going to be throwing up like some great triangles or anything. It's just going to be, I get taken down, and I guess we're going to talk about him going forward. But Marcel Fortuna has a loss to Jesse Taylor at middleweight, and so basically Jordan Johnson is a way bigger version of Jesse Taylor. And so it's going to look like that. Jordan Johnson decision.
Wes, Jordan Johnson, Marcel Fortuna. Johnson, I believe, is fairly sizable favorite here. I think minus 250, minus 300, right around that range. Fortuna, of course, come back on him, fairly sizable dog. Who do you like in this 205-pound matchup?
I'm picking Jordan Johnson, and I'll kind of briefly tell you why. Jed, you kind of mentioned it too. When Marcel Fortuna fought back a long time ago, this is probably not the best reason for kind of breaking it down because this fight happened back in 2012. But Marcel Fortuna fought at middleweight against Jesse Taylor in a fight where Jesse Taylor was able to pretty much dominate the wrestling department. Marcel Fortuna is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but had no success finding submissions against Jesse Taylor. And Jesse Taylor has actually been submitted in 14 of his 15 losses. Now, of course, that was back in 2012, but that's when Jesse Taylor was still getting submitted quite a bit. They are, especially in the time of this fight, Jesse Taylor and Marcel Fortuna about the same size. Taylor was able to out-grapple, who has very, very poor takedown defense or submission defense. Jordan Johnson, a much bigger guy who I think is more credentialed in the wrestling department than Jesse Taylor. He was I'm going to look at it real quick just because I'm not sure, but a D1 wrestler at the University of Iowa. I'm not really sure what Jesse Taylor did back when he was in college. But I think that Jordan Johnson, he's just a better athlete when it comes to wrestling. And I think that he's going to be intelligent and the bigger guy to defend any kind of submissions that Marcel Fortuna could pose by pulling off maybe some armbar. I think Jordan's going to be able to avoid him. So I favor Jordan Johnson by a pretty dominant decision.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't think it's going to be much of a pretty fight, but I think Jordan Johnson will do what Johnson does, and I think he'll be successful and get the W. It'll be a pretty decisive, unanimous decision. Fortuna, kind of basic matchup. One guy's a wrestler, the other guy's a jiu-jitsu guy. Their striking is sort of all right, getting better. Johnson should be able to control Fortuna on the mat. He has to be careful just because Fortuna can, grab an arm or get something sort of out of the blue as far as submission goes. But I don't see that happening. Johnson, we haven't seen much of him, but he looked decent. He looked really good in his debut against Da Silva. Did really well in that fight. Obviously, wasn't super fun, but did what he had to do, of course. So yeah, I like Jordan Johnson here. Somewhat confident. I mean, both guys are relatively unknown still, so they're inexperienced and young enough to the point where it's like one guy, they're still improving, they're getting better, and the improvements are usually clear fight to fight. So Fortuna has gotten better since his debut, which seems unlikely because that was only in February. But you never know. And maybe Johnson has, and he pulls it off. Fortuna, that is, who knows? Probably not, but you never know with these newer guys. Jordan Johnson's a pick, but somewhat confident, but it's kind of a whatever fight. I think we'll probably see some Jared Rochelle thing in this one. Next up, Brad Tavares and Elias Theodoro at middleweight. Again, not a fight that is going to deliver fireworks, I don't expect, but let's talk about it anyways. Jed, you like Tavares or the slight favorite here in the Canadian, the TUF Nations winner, the Spartan himself, Elias Theodoro?
It's a close fight. It's a very fucking middleweight fight. It's just so damn middleweight. That's what these guys are middleweights through and through. Like, not really exceptional at anything. Skills all around. They're gonna put together a fight that is mildly entertaining, but not. It's gonna be imminently forgettable, which is basically Brad Tavares' entire MO. If you can tell me off the top of your head a Brad Tavares fight, I'll call you a liar. And it's
Tim Bosch knockout.
Okay, well let's rephrase. If you can tell me a fight where he doesn't get knocked out by Bobby Knuckles in like 30 seconds too. All right, but just like a win. If you can tell me a win off the top
just
of your head.
beat Kyle Megalish.
Yeah, he's just, if he wins, it's going to be super forgettable, and pretty much the same thing goes for Elias Theodoro. It's an extremely close fight. Frankly, I think it's close to a pick'em. Honestly, I don't even know what the odds are on here. I would imagine they're somewhere in that neighborhood. The decider for me here is just Theodoro's activity. I think he's a little busier, a little busy on the feet, a little more active with his takedown game. Not like not even a very good wrestler really. But and Brad Tavares, like the one skill Brad Tavares does like really have, I think that stands out to me, is that he's a very good defensive wrestler. I don't think Elias Theodore is going to get him down, but I think that he can mix it up with takedowns more than Brad Tavares probably will. I just think he's going to be a little busy on the feet, going to land a little more. Tavares is going to take a few more shots. Really close fight. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a split decision here, but give me Elias Theodore by decision.
Well, I was going to say this has split decision written all over it, but Wes, Brad Tavares, Elias Theodoro, middleweight fight, who do you got?
I definitely actually think, I don't pick them often, but I think we're going to see a split decision in this one just because it has the stylistic characteristics of being a fight where we could see Theodore having moments, and then he makes a mistake, and then Tavares takes over, maybe gets a takedown, Elias stands up and gets a take. I feel like we're just going to see a lot of back and forth action between the two, but overall, just looking at the two based off their skills and where they're at now, I trust Elias a little bit more. His striking has come along quite a ways from where he was back before he was on The Ultimate Fighter. Brad Tavares has kind of stabilized into this pretty consistent fighter who has not really evolved in anything special. And we haven't seen that much of him. He's been pretty inconsistent with fighting. His last fight, we saw him win over Kyle Magalhaes, who's not even in the UFC anymore. Before that, he got knocked out by Bobby Knuckles. And that fight was in May of 2015. So that alone, I can't trust picking Tavares based off how long I wouldn't say of a layoff because the last fight was in September of 2013, but that's still a decent gap. But then again, before that, he hadn't fought in over a year. So he's only fought twice, I guess, in the past pretty much year and a half over. And Elias has been pretty active, evolving with his game pretty much overall. So for that reason, I'm going to take Elias. I do think it might be like a split decision, but I do think Elias is going to be able to get the job done.
Yeah, Theodore's the pick. The guy's a bit more athletic. The guy's a bit younger. Just worried because Tavares seems, he's the more seasoned guy, and he's, it's weird. Like, he's kind of the better fighter, but he's just not nearly as active, and he's not reliable. Theodoro at least has somewhat decent wrestling and striking, is getting better. The guy's just more active, a bit more volume, a lot of bear kicks, but and often that don't, are so far from landing, it's not even funny. But the guy just works hard, and this is going to be not a good fight. We're going to see a lot of grinding. We're going to see a lot of poor man's kickboxing, and it's going to be a classic middleweight fight that no one remembers come the end of the night. Theodore's the pick. It's going to be a split. It's going to be not fun. It's going to be close, and I don't care. Next up.
Who did you both pick? Sorry, I spaced out.
Theodoro, we both picked, I believe.
Okay.
I picked him. And Wes, you did, yeah?
Same.
All right.
Next up, I wish we were talking about Steve the Boss Bosse, but we are not. He's out, and in his place to take on the killer gorilla, Jared Cannonier, is newcomer Nick Roerick. Roerick was supposed to be on Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, the 5th show in early August, so short notice, very short notice, but apparently he was already in Vegas training with Curtis Blades, who is on UFC 213, which we'll get to on later tonight, the second episode of tonight, later on. Nick Roerick, Jared Cannonier. Just before you guys get into it, I don't know much about Roerick other than he's undefeated, seems to be a decent prospect at 205, but he doesn't have the UFC experience. Cannonier is 2-2 in the UFC. He's looked decent since dropping down from the heavyweight division. Light heavyweight certainly is going to be his longtime home. He's pretty good, and on short notice, I don't really see how Roerick can get it done. But Jed, I'm guessing you're in the same boat here, picking Cannonier. If not, thoughts on Nick Roerick?
I'm not, because I'm a shit-eating wild man. I'm picking Nick Roerick, and I'm telling you why. I want to tell you guys why, because I have a reason for it, and a lot of the reason is it's just way more fun to do it that way. But the other reason is this dude right here, picked Jared Cannonier to beat Glover Teixeira. That is a thing that I did. I believe I did it on this show, in fact. And I was very, very wrong. And my logic went, well, Teixeira's getting older. I stand by that. He's a good takedown artist, but Cannonier can probably keep it on the feet a little bit, and I think on the feet he's got a little more diversity than Glover. That's not how that worked at all. Glover took him down basically at will, and Jared Cannonier just tipped over like a tea kettle every time. And I'm not going to pretend like I know a ton about Nick Roerick. I managed to scope out a couple of his fights. There's not a ton of footage out there for him. And originally, I had actually intended not to pick him just because of the short notice and because it makes all the sense in the world not to pick him. But then when you told me he was going to be on the Tuesday Night Contender Series, I was like, okay, all right, so he was already training. It's not that big a difference here. And the couple of advantages that he does have, he can wrestle a little bit. Like, he's not like a dynamite wrestler or whatever. He doesn't seem to be a great athlete in general, but he can wrestle okay. He's pretty good on top, like pretty decent smash and pass sort of game. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to get you down, move to side, pound out, floats fairly well, honestly. And he is going to be much bigger than Cannonier here. I'm not looking off the top of my head, but I wrote it down to note that he's much larger. He's 4 inches taller. Cannonier has those like extremely ridiculous go-go gadget arms, so he actually has a slight reach advantage, but I think Roerick's just going to bully him up a little bit. And basically this is a combination of me fading Cannonier after Cannonier's repeated inability to show any type of takedown defense. I know Cannonier beat Ian Cutelaba. He also got taken down by Cutelaba like 8 times. And so he can't defensively wrestle. And Nick Roerick is going to come out and try to wrestle him. And I think he's a bigger guy. And I'm feeling frisky. I want to mix it up. I haven't done anything new or different on this set of picks. So give me Nick Roerick by decision.
All right. Wes, do you agree? Are you going to go with presumably a big underdog in Nick Roerick, or does the killer gorilla, Jared Cannonier himself, get back on track?
To be 100% honest, I thought about it. I watched some of this.
Do it. It just raises my chances of prevailing, coming out glory.
Well, I did watch some of I don't know how to. I'll just say Nick. I'll call him by his first name. I watched some of Nick's highlights, and I saw that he likes to grapple and look for takedowns and pretty much just hold you down. And sometimes you don't think he's going to be able to score takedowns in some different postures against the cage, but he's able to work his way out of different positions and score those takedowns by usually catching your leg. But he likes to initiate and try to push you up against the cage first. And it's hard to pick Cannonier just because he has awful takedown defense, but Cannonier definitely, I feel like, has the potential to become a good athlete. He has just that persona. He has that build and the striking power where if he knew how to wrestle and just become a little bit more well-rounded, he could be a pretty decent athlete. But it's just a hard one to call because after seeing the holes in Cannonier's game, I feel like this Roerick guy is going to be able to maybe neutralize it. But I think that what we're going to see is Nick's going to take maybe that first round, but maybe slow down as the fight kind of proceeds. And for that reason, I think Cannonier might be able to get the job done. For that reason, I actually picked Cannonier by a second-round knockout. I don't think we're going to see one come early just because I do think Roerick's going to have some of the earlier moments in the fight. But I do think as it proceeds, kind of like we saw in the Cutelaba fight, Cannonier will be able to take over and possibly get that knockout victory.
Now, I just saw that Jared Cannonier at the end of May quit his day job, so he is now a full-time fighter and training multiple times a day. So that's great. I think that will lead to just him getting better as a mixed martial artist overall. That's usually a good move for fighters trying to make it big and trying to go far with this. So that's something to just think about. But even if he was still working at, wherever he was working at, I think I guess, I'm picking him against Nick Roerick. Do I know anything about Nick Roerick? No. I know that he has a cool first name and he was supposed to be on Dana White Contender Series. That's it. So take this with a grain of salt, but the pick's Jared Cannonier because I know who the guy is and he's a pretty decent fighter. I wasn't silly enough to pick him against Glover Teixeira. I figured Glover would do work, and although it wasn't that fun of a fight, he did. But this is not Glover Teixeira. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just need to look into who Roerick is. But I would assume this isn't Glover Teixeira, and this is a short notice replacement who's 7-0, but not fantastic. I believe the combined record of his opponents, all 7, is under 500, so that's not great. The pick's Jared Cannonier. I think he knocks him out probably. So yeah, Cannonier TKO sometime in the fight.
Wes, did you cower out and not pick Roerick?
I wouldn't say I cowered out. I stuck with my initial pick,
Okay.
but I thought at times changing my pick.
Okay, you cowered out. That's fine. So you cowered out.
All right.
Say so.
Next up, Mark Diakis is taking on Drakkar Klose in actually a fairly interesting lightweight matchup. Bone crusher and Klose. Mark Diakis, obviously very highly touted, a prospect coming from overseas, originally from the Congo. Klose from the States. He's 6-0 and 1 draw. Both guys are undefeated. Pretty fun matchup. Jed, Diakis, or Klose?
Do we need to talk about this one too much? I think we're all going to end in the same place, but sure. Mark Diakis is going to win because he's dope. Jacare Close is a good fighter, a good athletic guy, but Mark Diakiese's just on a different level. Like, he's a blue chip prospect for a reason. I think this could be a fun, interesting fight, but Diakiese is, he's sort of been building a little bit of a name for himself as a striker, but his bread and butter is really explosive takedowns, dominant top control, vicious groundwork. I think he's gonna do the damn thing. Jacare Close can maybe keep it close early, no pun intended, just because he is also a very good athlete here. But at the end of the day, the cream will rise, and Mark Diakiese's cream here. So Diakiese, I'll say decision. I think Close is probably good enough to hang in for the whole time.
All right, and West, Jacare Close, the big underdog going into this main card lightweight fight, or Mark Diakieese, obviously very highly touted, a prospect. The guy has been doing very well, 3-0 in the UFC. Does that train keep on rolling, or does Close come home with a victory?
I favor Mark in this one. I think he's just a better athlete. Well, overall, more well-rounded. For Close, I've seen some of his fights back before he even fought Devin Powell, Devin Powell is not really the best athlete, and he was able to score a decision in that one, but Powell actually had some moments where he was able to land shots on Close. Sometimes he'll put together combinations, but they're kind of slower. You can kind of predict them the way that he moves in. Diakiese, he's just very technical with his punches and also very explosive, as you mentioned, Jed, with his takedowns. I think Diakiese is just, like I said, a more well-rounded athlete. I think this is pushing Close a little bit too hard, but I do like kind of the build-up to this one. They do have a little bit of animosity towards each other, a little bit of Twitter beef that we saw. So maybe we'll see probably a good weigh-in between these two. I think it'll probably be pretty heated. But overall, I think when it comes down to who's going to be able to get the job done, it's got to be Mark.
Yeah, Mark Diakiese is the pick here. Jacare Close, he could make it interesting, though. That's why I said off the top, this is somewhat of an interesting fight. This isn't, Close is mostly a wrestler. He's fairly well-rounded. He's decent. He's a decent athlete as well. He can give Diakiese some problems, I think. But will he? On paper he can, but will he? Probably not. Diakiese is very good, very flashy, but at the end of the day, he has a wrestling game as well. His striking is very good. He has pop to his punches. He has power. The guy is, could be a superstar in the making. He talks. He walks the walk. Sounds a lot like Conor McGregor. Not going to go that far, but, Diakiese at this point in his game, I like that they're building up slowly. They're not throwing him in top 15 fights right away. Jacare Close is a good step up, not a huge step up, but it is a step up, I think. Close will make it interesting early, but I do think Diakiese shuts his light out. Mark Diakiese, second round TKO. Better striker. I think, I maybe Close can score a takedown, but I'm not sure he does tons with it. Diakiese, second round TKO, book it. Co-main event time, the winner of the Ultimate Fighter Redemption /25 will be crowned. We got Jesse Taylor versus Diego Lima. Of course, that was just announced a little while ago. Jesse Taylor just went to the finals with a semifinal win over James Krause, as we spoke about earlier. Diego Lima already got to the finals last week with a win over Tom Galaccio, who we already talked about, as well as James Krause earlier on. Diego Lima and Jesse Taylor. Jed, who do you got?
Going to Wes for a second. Sorry.
Wes, who do you got?
Yeah, this fight I haven't had a chance to really do any breakdowns for it. Jesse Taylor, I don't ever recall him getting taken down, maybe ever, in the UFC, that is. I feel like a lot of the times he's the one initiating things, and then sometimes it gets changed in different positions. Then he gets on the bottom. But this is the deal. Jesse Taylor gets choked out quite a bit. Diego Lima beats quite a bit of fighters who have the abilities to grapple. But when it comes to this matchup, I'm thinking about favoring Jesse Taylor just because I feel like his evolution and ability to pretty much take control, I'm thinking that maybe Jesse Taylor is going to be able to get the victory in this one. But then again, I really do like Diego Lima, just because both of them have decent grappling capabilities. And Lima has the ability, whenever Jesse shoots, to possibly look for that guillotine choke. And even he said it. I don't know if you all saw it, but when it ended, when the show was ending, Diego even said, "You better watch out for your neck," or something in that regard. So pretty much right there, Diego's aware that Jesse's going to be looking for that takedown like he always does, and it's going to be a determining factor on whether or not Diego can get that guillotine choke, or if Jesse Taylor is going to be able to get the takedown, be able to avoid getting submitted in that exchange and get on top and be able to land some decent round and pound and possibly pull out a decision victory. But I don't really know who I want to pick. My initial reaction was to pick Jesse Taylor after based and watching his performances on TUF. I was a little bit more impressed, but then again, it's just concerning with his consistency to get choked out against fighters who have very impressive submission skills, and Diego Lima is one of them. I'm going to go out on the limb. It's not really going out on the limb, but I'm going to go with Diego Lima. I think he'll be able to get that guillotine choke early on in the first round. But then again, it's a toss-up. Like I said, I mean, he could definitely get taken down and Jesse just grinds out a decision victory, or maybe gets a TKO finish. But I'm going to go with Diego Lima. I think he gets that guillotine choke.
All right, Jed, Diego Lima, and Jesse Taylor, who walks away the TUF champ.
We went on a journey there, Wes. I thought you were picking Taylor, yeah. and then you just kind of pump faked us all there. All right, I'm picking Diego Lima, and I'll do the same thing. At this point, everybody who watches this is aware I train in Atlanta with ATT, not with Diego Lima, but the Lima brothers train in essentially an Atlanta suburb, their own affiliate gym. I see them around the gym all the time. My coaching staff is their coaching staff. It's all a big family. So take my pick for what it's worth. Diego is not as good as his brother, who, is coming off that awesome fucking win over Lorenz Larkin, where I didn't even pick him because I'm a cowardly piece of shit and a bad ATT team member. But I'm gonna pick Diego this time. We've sort of seen the track record with him. Diego's the issues Diego's had with his, he is a TUF finalist before, lost to Eddie Gordon in the finals. And the issue he had in his UFC run is with strikers, when people come in and put a lot of offense on him when they can touch his chin. But he hasn't, that's not what Jesse Taylor's going to do here. Jesse Taylor's going to look to take him down, look to submit him, look to maybe try and ground and pound him on top. He can maybe have some success with that, but Diego's a pretty solid defensive wrestler. I think he can threaten with submissions. He is a black belt at BJJ. If Jesse Taylor can enact his game plan, I wouldn't be totally surprised. But like we were talking about earlier, I do think wrestling is a big edge in the TUF house, and you see that matter a lot less so coming out of the TUF house. I think this is going to be one of those things. These guys are both veterans. They've been preparing for a while. I like Diego to get it done, to be able to work Jesse Taylor over on the feet and take a decision there.
Man, I was picking Jesse Taylor going into the show just after, watching the last couple of rounds of Taylor's beatdown. And man, Lima doesn't always have the best takedown defense. Maybe we see a similar fight. It's not going to be fun, but Taylor does what Jesse Taylor does. But I think you guys have convinced me, just because, looking back, Diego Lima seems to be the guy who would get taken down a lot, but that's not totally the case. It's like most of his struggles in the UFC were knockout losses, and even outside the UFC. I believe his last fight before going to the TUF house was that knockout loss to Jason Jackson to lose the Titan FC title. Maybe he had something after that, but that was one of his more recent fights, and that was after his UFC run. So his chin has always been the biggest issue in getting pressure on the feet. We see that in the Tim Means fight, Li Jingliang fight, etc. But that's not going to be an issue at all here. Jesse Taylor is not much of a striker. He's a wrestler. And if he can work his game plan, as Jed said, I won't be shocked. Because oftentimes that's the game plan that can work, even though you're not always the better fighter per se all around. Diego Lima he can threaten with submission, so that might make Taylor a bit weary. He might not want to advance position or take too many risks on the mat. So that's something to think about. He's obviously Lima is obviously a very good submission guy, as you guys both mentioned, and he's a better striker. So if he is able to keep this one standing for the most part, I think he wins this fight all day. I'm just worried about him getting taken down repeatedly, over and over and over. That's something that could happen. I'll say it doesn't. I'll say Lima can defend more than half the takedowns and keep this one standing for at least 8 minutes or so. And I give him a close decision nod in the co-main event. And new champ, Diego Lima, or tough champ, that is. Little ways away from beating Tyron Woodley, but step by step, we'll see. Next up, we got the main event of the evening, and this is what we've all been waiting for. This is going to be super, super fun, and this kind of saves the card because other than this fight, not a whole lot going on in this card, if we're being honest. I know UFC 213 is the next night, so I can't complain too much, but if we're being honest, we have Michael Johnson, Justin Gaethje, and not much more. But Michael Johnson, Justin Gaethje saves the card because this is a fantastic lightweight matchup. We've all been waiting for Gaethje in the UFC. It's inevitable. It has been for a long time, and the time has come. Here he is to highlight himself in the big leagues, taking on one of the lightweights' finest in Michael the Menace Johnson. Johnson, of course, has a lot of losses on his record. Gaethje undefeated, but the experience is still in favor of Johnson. He fought the tougher guys. He's been in the UFC, but will that matter? Gaethje, obviously, ultra aggressive. His style is fantastic to watch. Maybe not fantastic for one's health or one's lifespan, but hey, Michael Johnson, Justin Gaethje, gonna be really, really fun. Jed, does the Menace pull it off, or does Justin the Highlight Gaethje succeed in his UFC debut, his highly anticipated and long-awaited UFC debut, that is?
I don't know, man. I'm going to talk myself into the answer here, and we'll figure out. We're going to go on a journey. I hate this fight. I've said it a million times on various podcasts. My own, my other one, you might know it as the MMA Circus. Is this podcast? It's just Justin Gaethje is legitimately, I'm very seriously one of, if not the most exciting fighters in the sport. The only person I think that can credibly kind of compete with him on an in cage excitement basis, night in, night out, is Conor McGregor. I do think Conor McGregor is just, every time Conor McGregor fights outside of the circus or whatever, when he's in the cage, it's fucking electric. And the same thing is with Justin Gaethje. This dude is violence. He is violence incarnate. It's fucking awesome. He's super self-aware, knows that he's a bottle rocket. He's going to fly high and burn out real quick. I think this fight's terrible because there's a very real possibility that Michael Johnson just tools him up on a technical basis, keeps him at range. Justin Gaethje never gets to get in, gets to, do that kind of interior brawling work that he does, chopping with low kicks and stuff. And if so, then that's just going to be sad. The fight that was supposed to happen here, and then things obviously worked out in an odd way. What should have happened is Justin Gaethje should have fought the winner of Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez. Obviously, that fight went on to be a clusterfuck, but realistically, Dustin Poirier beat Eddie Alvarez, and Justin Gaethje should just be fighting Dustin Poirier. That fight is amazing. But now we're in this room. As far as technical breakdown goes, I think this just comes down to a mental thing here. Legitimately, Michael Johnson's been drawn into brawls before. Michael Johnson was beating Nate Diaz until suddenly Nate did his machismo shit and Michael Johnson got clowned a little bit and then started kind of doing the Diaz thing. He got sucked into a Diaz fight instead of sticking to movement range, using his quicker foot speed, quicker hand speed, and just piecing him up at distance. I think that can happen here. They've been engaging in a war of words. Michael Johnson has said some really stupid things that I hate the shit out of. And I will not dignify to repeat here because they're fucking stupid. And then tries to be like, oh, it's a mental warfare. I don't buy it. I think he just said stuff because he's saying stuff. I don't think he's a terrible person for it. So it was stupid. But I do think that Justin Gaethje is going to get in there going to try and scrap with him, and eventually you can draw Michael Johnson into a brawl. My original thought when this fight was announced is, oh, fuck, you guys are going to burn out Justin Gaethje by having him lose to Michael Johnson. That doesn't really benefit anybody here. Come around a little bit more on it. If Gaethje beats Johnson, it's one of the, like, Gaethje's an interesting dude in that this is a stylistically poor matchup for him, but, like, even the stylistically good matchups for him are still, like, he'd totally lose to Dustin Poirier. Like, that's much more a fight his speed, but, like, he could just get lamped by Poirier because of the offense that other fighters bring. I wanted this fight to be, okay, Michael Johnson's an underdog, then I can bet him at an underdog price. Instead, Johnson's the favorite here. I'm going to pick Gaethje, and I basically talked myself into it because Michael Johnson's not a great defender of leg kicks. Gaethje has a frequency with them. They are vicious. He stopped people with them. And I do think he's going to be able to early. I think Johnson's going to be winning. I think Johnson's just going to be quicker, moving around a lot more. I think he will get drawn into a brawl as it goes on, and Gaethje's just going to get stronger as the fight goes on. His leg kick's going to take more effect, going to slow the movement of Johnson down some, and he's going to end up doing something really violent and dope here. It sounds weird, but Gaethje has been saying, I'm going to break him. I break people with my pressure and my pace. And Johnson's like, I've never been broken. Dude, Khabib broke the shit out of you. I don't know if you know what broke means, but Khabib sunned you like a small child, told you in no uncertain terms, you have to quit now. I need this title shot. And then you did. Like, well, I'm not saying I wouldn't have, dude. You took way more than me, obviously. But you got broke. You can get broke. And Gaethje is the type, he's not bringing the same violence Khabib does, but he's bringing a equal level of violence. I think he is going to break Johnson. I think he's going to get him out of there in the third round.
Interesting. Wes, Justin Gaethje, does he prevail victorious in his long-awaited UFC debut? Or does Michael Johnson pull off, not the upset, but sort of the stinker in a way? Because everyone's, in a way, pulling for Gaethje. The UFC wants Gaethje to win, and they don't want Michael Johnson to win. So who takes this one?
Man, I don't really want to pick it. I'll say this, though. Gaethje has always been one of my favorite fighters. I've always enjoyed the dude's style. His actual first fight that he had with Luis Palomino was probably one of my favorite fights of all time, just because I love violence, and that was pretty much the definition of violence that you don't see in the UFC. And that's one thing. Another thing, it's underrated in that fact because it wasn't in the UFC, and a fight that was often overlooked. But go back and watch it. It is one of the most exciting. I mean, if you took their names and replaced it with two people in the UFC that were champions, two of the more popular people, you would definitely say that might be one of the greatest fights of all time. It was absolutely wild. Even the second one was. These two are both very similar in the fact that they love to strike. They don't really grapple that much, and they also beat the hell out of Melvin Gillard. I love both of these two. Michael Johnson's also very exciting. His biggest hole has been his grappling. Justin Gaethje, we haven't really seen him ever really lose a fight because of grappling, because he's won all those fights. But then again, his last fight that he had with Firmino was a fight where we saw some holes in his game, and even some holes in his striking abilities too. When it comes down to it, I want to pick Gaethje, but I'm going to be going Michael Johnson. And I'll say kind of probably the most predominant reason why was after watching a little bit of fight film. I noticed one thing with Gaethje is that he always is going in and liking to be the aggressive fighter. Michael Johnson sometimes likes to fight on the outside, circle around a little bit, and try to feel out his opponent early on. And pretty much all of Michael Johnson's fights that he has won by knockout, they've come by counter punches. And the biggest two were against Poirier and Danny Castillo, even a little bit in the T-Bow fight. And then even in the fight that he had with Khabib, Khabib was running in, and Michael Johnson was able to land a counter that kind of rocked him there early on in the first round, like a minute and a half. But I shouldn't say rocked, it's just more say wobbled. But Gaethje, it's just risky because we've seen him hurt in certain exchanges in the Palomino fight, in the Firmino fight. So just off those reasons alone, I think Michael Johnson is maybe the more powerful striker, even though Gaethje gets quite a bit of finishes more often. but I'm going to be going Michael Johnson. I think that his counter is possibly going to land just because Gaethje starts pushing in too hard and maybe too hard early. For that reason, I'm going to pick Michael Johnson. I actually have to pick by first-round knockout because I see this fight being possibly just one where either one has the ability to get a knockout early on. But then again, too, if you think about it, Michael Johnson has never been stopped via strikes in his mixed martial arts career. Gaethje has been rocked a little bit more often than Michael Johnson. So for that reason, I'm going to be picking Michael Johnson by a first-round knockout. However, I'm kind of pulling for Gaethje a little bit. I wanted to pick him, but I trust Michael Johnson a little bit more in this one.
This is this is a really interesting fight. This is, I don't like it because it doesn't make sense, but I still like it because it should be interesting. It should be pretty entertaining. Michael Johnson is a very tough test and stylistically a bad matchup for Justin Gaethje. I think that's kind of just common knowledge. I think most people are saying that. But people that are picking Justin Gaethje, like Jed here, are just kind of thinking Gaethje's so goddamn tough, he can get past that, and he can break through Michael Johnson, and he can break Michael Johnson. And that's very possible.
That's literally all Nate Diaz did. Nate Diaz didn't like super out technique him. He was just a harder fucking man who's like, I'm nuts on the table. I'm a harder dude than you.
I agree. So yeah, with that in mind, go back, watch Nate Diaz, Michael Johnson. Maybe that would persuade someone to change to Gaethje if they're thinking Johnson. But the pick's Michael Johnson. He's the fastest guy, one of the fastest guys in the division. He's the more accurate puncher, the more accurate striker, of course, all around. The guy's just, a really good fighter, and he's good at game planning. I look back on the Edson Barboza fight. That was a really somewhat of an eye-opening fight for Michael Johnson. Looked really good in that one as far as how, to beat Edson Barboza, you got to do this, this, and this. He did that very well, just as far as, pressuring him and whatnot. I think Johnson keeps his distance well. He stick and moves very well. His movement's very good. Justin Gaethje slows down. He uses tons of energy. He's super fun, and I'm excited to see where Gaethje goes from here, win or lose. But it's not going to be, the debut I think a lot of people expected. It's going to be a loss. But as far as I'm concerned, that's what I'm predicting. But just kind of the hype train derailed real quick. It's not going to be what the UFC wants, of course, and it's unfortunate, but they'll have to look back and say, yeah, and probably made a mistake with his matchmaking. Gaethje is a wrestler, and maybe he can take Johnson down. That's maybe something he can do, but Johnson has good takedown defense. So this is going to be a striking battle. Johnson's the crisper striker. Gaethje is dangerous. Johnson has power himself. Gaethje, he needs to get in Johnson's face. Johnson needs to stay away, keep distance, move, pot shot, and land volume. And that's what I see happening. Michael Johnson, unanimous decision, close fight, but still decisive. Michael Johnson decision, main event, book it. That's what I'm going with. So that wraps up our predictions for the TUF 25 finale.
Bonuses.
What's that?
Bonuses.
Yeah. Bonuses and DraftKings, I just checked, I believe, is out.
Oh, do they have one up now? They might have been waiting. I guess they could have been waiting for the final fights to get tossed up. I'll look onto it and we can all.
Oh, no, they don't yet. It's still reserve a seat. So no DraftKings for this card. Maybe they'll have something later on, but we're not going to be able to give those to you. But no DraftKings for now. But performances, we can't give out those. Wes, we'll start with you. Performances of the night and fight of the night. Who do you got?
I haven't really had a chance to think too much about bonuses, but I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to go with saying that we will see no fight of the night. And I think we're going to see 4 performances given out. One of them to Michael Johnson. The second to Mark D. Casey. The third to Jared Cannonier. And the fourth to Angela Hill.
Oh, all right. All right.
Yeah,
And
I
Jed,
didn't pick Teruto, so I had to go with somebody else. I picked by knockout.
I don't like this. I think that's sort of cheating. I'm not gonna lie.
Cheating.
Yeah, I mean, look, if they end up doing it, then okay, you called your shot and you got the 4 bonuses thing correct. But if not, you just sacrifice the fight of the night to have double the shot at getting one of your performance bonuses correct. So I'm just saying,
I'll
I don't like
sacrifice
it.
it.
I don't.
I'll risk it. I got to take a little risk here and there.
You're not risking much here. You are gaining a considerable advantage by getting 2 bites at the performance apple here, essentially.
But I'll say, should I give a fight of the night for who I think could be fight of the night?
No, because then you really just get 2 bites at the performance bonus apple for no reason. You have to at least sacrifice something, but I don't like it, is what I'm saying. I don't like it. As far as my fight of the night is obviously going to be the main event. I picked Gaethje in the 3rd round, but what I should have said is in the 4th, I think he's going to get it done in the championship rounds. This fight's going to be gangbusters because it's a main event. So I think Gaethje's tough enough to outlast Johnson for a little while and take it into deep waters. So I think that's very clearly should be your fight of the night choice. It's certainly going to be mine. As far as performance bonuses, that is a whole different thing to do. I'm going to pick Teruto Ishihara. I'm not super confident, as we already discussed, but I do think Gray Maynard Shin's gone. Ishihara thumps something proper. So if he can land on him, I think he goes in a very stylish finish there. So give me Ishihara for his bitches one time. And yeah, I think it's hard not to just pick Mark Diakiese. Just offensively potent dude. Give me Mark Diakiese for the other performance of the night bonus.
Alrighty, my fight of the night, definitely Michael Johnson, Justin Gaethje. That's going to be a really fun one. My performances, I'm tempted to not give one to Diakiese because I'm picking him by knockout, but I think a decision is, it's very possible. But I'm going Diakiese just because, the one I'm for sure giving it to is Jared Cannonier. So it's going to be fight night, Johnson Gaethje, and my 2 performances, Diakiese and Jared Cannonier. But I want to explain that, Cannonier is the very, very solid one in my opinion. And then you got Diakiese and Ishihara, and it really just comes down to who's more likely to finish. I got both guys finishing, but I think decisions are very possible. A bit more likely for Ishihara, so Diakiese it is. Johnson Gaethje, Diakiese, and Cannonier are my performances, and that wraps up episode 73 of Before the Battle. Thank you guys for watching, but don't go away. We will be back in no time at all, 5 to 10 minutes, probably closer to 10, to talk about UFC 213. I can't believe we're only halfway in, and we've probably been going on for an hour and a half or more. Hour and a half, yeah, damn. All right, this is going to be a long one, long night, that is, but I guess if you guys aren't tuning in, we better let you know where we can find us. Jed, let the people know where they can find you on social media, where they can find your writing, your podcast, and anything else you got to plug.
Check me out on Twitter at Jed K. Meshew, JedKMeshew. Everything else links off that, so you can get everything else. All my writings at MMAfighting.com. Check me out there, and yeah. That's it.
And Wes, where can we find you on the Twitter, on the social media? Where can we find your writing and anything else you got going on?
Writing at MMAsucker.com, Twitter at all that MMA.
Boom. All right. You can find me on the Twitter at Nick Baldwin MMA. Let's start the campaign to get my blue check mark back. I was denied it. I got it, and then I was denied it after changing my nickname. That's kind of brutal from Twitter, but nonetheless, Nick Baldwin MMA on the. I put out an interview article with Leslie Smith that, I think really eye-opening stuff. She got kicked out at the MMA FA, according to her, after asking Kobe Bryant about unions. So go check it out. She was on the MMA circus last week. This week on the MMA circus, Jed Meshew was not part of it. Surprise, surprise, 2 weeks in a row, Andrew Lawrence.
Fuck him.
The only Motown phenom, Kevin Lee, coming off his win over Michael Chiesa, and also the new Bellator lightweight champion, Brent Primus, coming off his controversial TKO win over Michael Chandler. Go check it out. Kevin Lee, Brent Primus, and then Andrew and I preview these 2 cards, Tough Finale and UFC 213. Gets it, doesn't get it. Dumb questions. Got to love it. The MMA Circus, now available on more platforms than ever. That is it. Thank you guys for checking us out. Episode 73 of Before the Battle in the books. Don't miss it. 74 coming up in 5 to 10 minutes. Bathroom break, water break. Do what you got to do. We'll be back to talk UFC 213, that fantastic card, on this channel, YouTube channel. I'm going to change the link. It's like Fight Pass when you're going from prelims to main card. So it sucks, but I'll tweet it out. See you guys very soon. Thanks as always for watching. Enjoy the fights.
Love you guys.